And I asked the question going to break, what is more likely, the Badgers losing to James Madison in the first round or them going to the Elite Eight? I think this is a good question. I do want to from ESPN's Tournament Challenge. This is why I think fans are automatically worried about this game. JMU shocked college hoops world opening night by winning at Michigan State.
Yep.
But it was foreshadowing the rest of the season as the Dukes rattled off multiple win streaks of 13-plus games and entered the tournament 31-3. That reminds me a lot of my FAU Owls from last year. No team in D1 earned more victories. JMU pushes the pace, is aggressive on defense, and holds opponents to an absurdly low 29% shooting from beyond the arc. The Dukes are dangerous. If you're going to tell me a team that could give the Badgers a world of hurt, it's this team. And here's the difference between the Badgers now and in years past. They no longer, like when a few years ago, especially when Bo was here, they just had better players. And now I think there's good coaching. I think JMU, athletically and overall basketball ability-wise, is closer than Wisconsin. We just saw this last year with FAU. JMU could be the next FAU and make a run, and that's a bad matchup right there for the Badgers. And one more thing, I want to give a shout out to a former ESPN Madison intern, Charlie Fryer, said this, and I sent this to you.
Yeah, you did.
He said this on X on Friday. Anyone who doubted Greg Gard would rip off 2 job-saving March wins simply doesn't understand the universal equilibrium of Greg Gard. He will now probably beat Purdue, then lose the title game by 2 to 4 points, and then lose the first week in the NCAA tournament. Because that is chalk. That is chalk for the Badgers, who have not gone to Sweet 16 since 2017.
Yeah, it's been a minute for Greg Gard and company, but I do feel good about where this group is at, Jim, right? Like, I think this Big Ten tournament run for them was really important and really impressive. Obviously, you want to be playing your best ball in March, and it seems like Greg Gard has this group doing just that. So that's an important sign. When it comes to James Madison, look, they haven't played anybody, right? They had the win on opening night against Michigan State, and then they were ranked for a minute there. I think they peaked at number 19 in the country at the beginning of January. But they lost to Southern Mississippi, who hasn't been relevant in anything since Brett Favre was there. Mm-hmm. And then Appalachian State they lost to as well, who didn't make the tournament. So I don't know how much stock I put into James Madison. They can score the ball, but they play in a bad conference, obviously a one-bid conference. I really don't worry that much about the opening round. The second round I do, because it'd be likely a matchup with Duke. And then the Sweet 16, if they get past Duke in the second round to the second weekend for the first time since 2017, they'd play the second overall team in the country. That's Houston. So to answer your question, which I don't like, it's more likely they lose to James Madison than get to the Elite Eight. However, if you asked, is it more likely they lose to James Madison or get to the second weekend, I would say the second weekend.
Call it what you will. I just feel like that this weekend proved that they could hang with the nation's best. Because
That's a good point.
Let's look at it this way. I mean, hey, it is what it is. It's cool to see that they made it back into the top 25. It does not matter at this point by any means. Nobody's going to care what you are in the AP poll the rest of the way from here. But you look at it, it is taking down the top seed in Purdue, but that was also number 3 Purdue, who owns one of the top seeds in the nation now in this bracket. And then you go toe-to-toe for a very long time. Really, I think it was Terrence Shannon Jr. that ended up outlasting Illinois, and then Marcus Domask, too. Illinois is a very deep team. Don't get me wrong. Team. No. But that's also another top 25 team. So on
top 10 team.
Yeah, top 10. If you could go toe-to-toe, take down one of those top teams in the weekend, and then on the day right after, go after another team and pretty much bring them all the way down to, I'd say, yeah, definitely the final minute and a half of that game, I think it's possible. I know that this whole slide from February, a lot of people are thinking, can this team do it? They are getting their horses back, and I think, again, it's not like that they were missing key guys, or they were missing key guys off the bench, but it was just more about getting their starters some rest and getting guys in the rotation and working back. I thought, and I'm going to put it out here, I thought we saw the team that was ranked 6th in that sprinkling this past weekend. The team that was ranked 6th at one point this season, I thought we saw them this weekend.
I fully agree with you, Pablo. I think, you know what, the utter tenacity and grit in that Purdue game, when you have 3 of your bigs, your 3 top bigs foul out of that game, right? Wall, Crowell, and Winter all fouled out. Purdue shot 36 free throws. I think Wisconsin shot 9 in that game, right? That's a 27 free throw discrepancy, and you still find a way to win that game.
Take that.
That's important, and that's really impressive by this group. I think you're totally right. This looked like a team that can compete with anybody, although Houston scares the hell out of me if they get them in the Sweet 16.
Anything could happen. Anything
You're
could
right.
happen.
That's why you play the game, right?
So this is also the team that lost to Nebraska, and then Purdue, and then Michigan, and then Rutgers.
But the good news is
barely beat Maryland at
besides
home, lost
Michigan
to
and
Iowa,
Rutgers,
lost to Indiana.
In Indiana. Yeah.
They barely beat Minnesota. That game was a 2-point game.
Yeah, so, I mean, you
this
listen
team
to-
is fully capable of losing anyone, including bad basketball teams.
Yeah.
And James Madison is not a bad basketball team.
No, they're not. They're a good basketball team, just a small on a
I would
small
say
scale.
not off. I think if the Badgers give their average performance, they very likely are going to get all that they want from James Madison. It's going to be a tight game. They have to play above their normal abilities like they have been. I think the Badgers are a slightly above average basketball team. What are they, fourth best team in the Big Ten? And the Big Ten is an okay conference. So, I think the Badgers are, they win 22 games? 22?
Probably third best team in the Big
Well,
Ten.
I meant where they actually finished.
Oh, fourth, yeah.
So,
or fifth.
Well, yeah, fifth because they're a 5 seed. So that's kind of what they are. They're a 23-win team that could surprise a little bit, but I'm also not going to be surprised at all if they lost. I would not bet the Badgers to do anything in the tournament.
I like their matchup against Duke if they get there. I do. I think this is a Sweet 16 team. I think they lose in the Sweet 16 to Houston.
I definitely see them going to the second weekend.
Yeah.
I think it's very
That
possible.
is insane because
Why
history
is that
tells you
insane?
Greg Gard doesn't take them there.
Well, he's
2017.
Yeah, he was the head coach that year, though.
It's 2024. That's
I
a
understand.
long time ago.
I understand
They
that.
had Johnny Davis. They won the
Judgmental
Big
Jim.
Ten, and they lost.
Well, Chucky got hurt. That doesn't help. Your starting
you
point guard
still
goes
can
down in the
win
game.
your game. Weren't they in Milwaukee?
It was a home game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there.
That's
Yeah.
crapping the bet.
They lost to Iowa State, who is very, very good, by the way.
Still,
This year they are. They weren't then, but they are very good.
They
this
were
year.
Elite Eight that year. Well, they made it to the Sweet 16
Sweet
because of that.
16,
Well, because of that.
I'm just tired of
because
making
victory,
excuses.
but-
I hope he proves me wrong.
I hope he proves you wrong too, and I think he will. I think they beat James Madison pretty handedly, right? I don't think they're to a point where they're too comfortable. I don't think this is a team that in the locker room, Pablo, and you can disagree with me if you want,
Yep.
but in the locker room, I don't think they're sitting there yeah, we got our swagger back. We're totally good.
They
We're gonna
said
make.
that.
I know that, Jim, but I don't think they said, hey, we don't have to worry about anybody. We're better than anybody we play. They're focusing on James Madison. They're going to take it seriously. I don't think there's any chance that James Madison beats Wisconsin.
They ended the season losing to Indiana, losing to Illinois, beating Rutgers, and then losing to Purdue, and then they beat a bad Maryland team, Northwestern, and then they pulled off an upset which could have gone either way against Purdue. If they lose to Purdue, then everyone feels differently. It's a 1-point game.
In overtime, I don't think you feel differently. I think you
Badger
still hear
fans
the
are very
complaints
much
about the referees.
Right, I know. There's a lot of moral victories amongst Badger fans too.
Take it for what it's worth. I think even and I've covered the Badgers for about 3 seasons now. The Johnny Davis season, that was a phenomenal year, but it felt like that team only depended on Johnny. I mean, you have Brad Davison who could hit a couple good shots, and Chucky. Honestly, I think Chucky was more of a dynamic scorer that year too.
Agreed.
And he's. I don't want to say he's taken a step back because that's not fair to him. He has really progressed into a different kind of point guard. He can score. I mean, we saw it yesterday that he could score 20 points, but he is more of a facilitator. He can spread the ball out, but he'll also drive when he needs to. I think from an offensive weapon standpoint, and it shows that this is the last team to score as many points or average as much since the team in the 90s when Finley was on that team. This team, from a depth standpoint, offensively, I do think that they are challenged when it comes to big guys. That clearly is the thing. But offensively, it just seems like they have answers. They have guys who you can spread the wealth. This guy can score that. Maybe it's Klesmit, maybe it's Blackwell, maybe it's Hepburn. Who knows?
And I get what you're saying, but they're all maybes. They're never consistent. They have one consistent scorer. And it very easily, and this is why they lose, is that when they don't have the other guys step up, because none of these guys are consistent, it's like one of these guys hopefully can maybe step up.
Stephen Crowell has to be that guy.
And I think he's the one that's going to get flustered the most. I think James Madison's going to, I think they're going to throw the kitchen sink at him, and I think he's going to turn it over a lot.
I told Pablo this on Saturday tip-off. If Stephen Crowell scores in double figures, the odds of the Badgers winning is 90%.
I'm just happy
if he
takes
scores
10
single
shots.
digits. Yeah, right. But if he scores in the single digits, the odds of the Badgers winning is like 30%.
Right, and Greg Gard knows that. Every game, he's like, well...
He's got to be more aggressive,
Yes.
right? He said that a million times this year.
Right.
So Stephen Crowell is the X factor in a good
and that's
going to
regress back to the mean at some point. It's just a matter of when.
Correct.
Like, he will go back to not taking shots. Yeah. This team will go back to the team that couldn't beat anyone. That's the whole year.
Unless they win the national championship.
The whole year, that's who they've been.
No, you're right.
They regress back, and I think they will, and I think they're going to do it immediately. Hopefully I'm wrong. Right now, 55% of you say it's more likely they lose in the round of 64 than make the Elite
Well, that's a tough question, Jim. If you would have gone second weekend, I think that the results are very different. When you have a powerhouse like Houston standing in the way of the Elite Eight. Sure.
It would be a surprise if they lose to James Madison. And
it would be a surprise if they beat Houston.
So that's how we worded it like that.
Okay, I gotcha.
Most likely they should make the Sweet 16. They definitely should beat James Madison.
Okay, but all criticism aside for a moment, Jim, you were obviously in Madison when they lost to Duke in the national championship game. I didn't live here yet, but I'm a Badgers fan. Pablo, I know you've always watched.
Game,
right, you've always watched college hoops. I want that rematch in the round of 32 Sunday so badly.
Does it carry the weight? I mean, Coach K is gone.
It doesn't carry the weight in terms of like, it's the revenge tour, but it's two prominent programs that are seemingly in the NCAA tournament every single year.
Except for last year for the Badgers and a couple years before that. 23
in the last 25 though, Jim. Like I
when
know
Bo
you
was
want
here,
to.
it was not like you had to take years off. You just always were.
No, you're right. He made it every time he was here.
Feels more of like the prove it weight for Greg Gard. Is that what you're saying? Like
it
would be like it would be a
cool
prove it moment for him if
Correct.
they were to.
I
hear you.
And it's two, like I said, it's two prominent schools. Duke's a blue blood, but they're a little bit down this year than they typically are. I just think it's a really cool round of 32 matchup, right? Like if you look across the bracket, I don't feel like there's a second round game more so than UW and Duke. I think maybe Marquette and Florida, but Florida lost their center yesterday.
Kansas and Gonzaga.
FAU, UConn.
Kansas, Gonzaga. I missed that.
I'm into FAU UConn, but that's probably not going to be there. I'll give you. That's probably the
New Mexico Baylor could be fun, but I really think
it's funny. I have the exact same one. I do not think Clemson's going to. You're listening off these, obviously your projections.
New Mexico as an 11 seed is crazy.
Yeah,
Ryan.
Houston, Nebraska could be a fun game. I think Nebraska could have like a
New
little
Mexico's
bit. New Mexico's
26th in the AP poll.
I don't think they're going to have a Davidson run, but like Nebraska, I feel like could have some fun.
We need to. We need to root for Long Beach State, man. They don't even.
Oh
my
God! How amazing is that?
Too, yeah.
That is the coolest story in college hoops. And he has doubled down on he's done. Right after he won the conference
tournament.
He was fired. Well, he's not being retained.
Yeah, okay.
Is the terminology they used. The Long Beach State, a 15 seed,
because he was there for 17
Arizona.
years, so I think they're kind of just obviously he's older.
Yeah,
they're kind of letting.
But he wants another job, and he made that pretty clear. He's like, I'll go elsewhere. But to get in by winning the conference tournament, now you play a 2 seed in Arizona in LA, which is kind of a home game of sorts for Long Beach State, right? Because that's a California school, if I'm not mistaken.
Long Beach, yep.
So
Long Beach. Long Beach, California.
UCLA, huh?